God, we are digging into some intense language that this book uses to describe you. I pray that as we dig into your word tonight, you would let this stuff not just be black and white words that we read in a book or on our phone, but this would be so real that we would feel the heat coming off these pages, that this would be reality for us as we seek to understand your character so that we can respond to it. Father, thank you so much for being who you are, and let us know you more tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. So we are in a series right now called Psalms. We've been looking at the book of Psalms. It's in the Old Testament. It's not slam poetry, as PJ seemed to think it was. It's a collection of worship songs that were used throughout the temple a long, long time ago with the Israelite nation. These are songs that were written out of the lives of the people who, as they were following God, they wrote about stuff that was actually happening to them. So the first week we looked at different types of psalms. We looked at the Thanksgiving psalm. Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," and all the stuff that goes along with that one. It's a psalm of thanksgiving. It's saying, because God protects me, because God cares for me, I'm going to give thanks to him. I put my trust in him. I put my confidence in him. So it's a psalm that's about thanksgiving. And then if you used your guidebook over that week after, you had a psalm each day that kind of walked you through what psalms of thanksgiving are all about. Last week, Wes Ward was here, did an incredible job giving his story and talking about psalms of lament. Lament psalms are used to describe those times that are just awful. Like you look around, everything is just terrible, and relationally or with your parents or whatever, and you go, I'm just frustrated. I'm angry even. And maybe even directing that anger towards God. So there's a whole slew of psalms that are lament psalms. They're written from that point of view, from that perspective of frustration and angst. And it uses that language and sends it to God and says, this is how we feel, what's going on. And it begs for answers, and it begs for the tension to be removed, and it begs for interaction from God. That's what we studied last Wednesday, and then this past week, if you use the guidebook, you got a chapter each week. This week, we're going to do the last of the three big genres that we're talking about. And this week, we're looking at Psalms of Praise. Now, that may sound really strange given the song we just did and the language in Psalm 46. But just to remind you, as we're looking into Psalms, as we're using this book, and really you could probably take this approach to anything in this book, cover to cover, maps and concordance included, everything in here. This book is about revealing God's character and showing us how we can respond to it. So as we're looking at Psalms, as we're looking at these worship songs that were used a long, long time ago, what is it revealing about God's character? And what is it saying that we should respond? How should we respond to God's character based on this psalm? This sidebar, this is completely free. These psalms that we read, they're in a lot of the worship songs that we use in 2014. This was like the worship song book that Jesus used when he was here on earth. The 30-something years that he was here, when he went to the temple, they would actually use a lot of these songs. Isn't that crazy? You get to sing worship songs that Jesus actually sang. When he was here breathing breath, he sang some of these songs. That's bananas to me. I wonder if Jesus, when he was in the temple, if he just randomly busted into Hillsong and just messed with everybody. He started singing, "I am mighty to save, I am mighty to save." And they're like, what language is that? We don't know English. It's bizarre to me. This is their worship songs. And when we talk about a psalm of praise, it doesn't even need a specific reason. Thanksgiving is like, because we're thanking you for this specific thing. You've shown that we can trust you. You've shown because this. Sometimes the Psalms of Praise is such a wide range. It can be just for no reason at all. Just, God, you're God, and you're awesome, and we're so thankful. And it can be that generic in the Psalm of Praise. But this Psalm 46, it starts off very intense, talks about the earth giving way and mountains falling into the heart of the sea, and the earth melting and desolation and fire and shattering and all kinds of pain happening. The first verse I kind of skipped over, verse 1 of Psalm 46 says, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." That's kind of the thesis statement of this chapter. Psalm 46, God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. And then for the majority of the rest of the book, we'll get these descriptions of God interacting with humanity. It's big, it's bold, it's intense. It's not God wrote us a letter and then drank some tea. It's God's like sending fire to the earth and destruction's happening and mountains are falling into the sea and all kinds of craziness is going on. When you read this book, this thing should be in color. This thing should be so vibrant in your life. I hope that as we sing a song by Ed Sheeran that uses some of the same language as this, you realize how crazy it is. This language is so powerful. Don't read this stuff and just zoom past it. It's a tendency, especially in a book like Psalms. I'm supposed to read the Bible, so I read, I got it done. Okay, read all the words, and that's it. Especially when you're reading a chapter like this, it's so important to understand why. I mean, the people who wrote this, they had an audience. They didn't just write it and think, all right, in a couple thousand years, people are going to read this for a Bible reading plan. That just need more words. They weren't trying to reach a word count, okay? They wrote this stuff for personal reasons to a specific audience about certain things. So let's just push pause on Psalm 46 for a second, and we'll go back to Numbers for a minute. How many of you read Numbers all the time? Book of Numbers? You love math so much, you're like, there's a whole book about math? I am in. Sign me up. Old Testament trigonometry. That's not what it's about. Numbers tells a lot of the interaction that Moses and Aaron had with the Israelites pre-getting into the Promised Land. So if you back up history way, way back, before Israel had their own country, which is kind of a hot-button issue right now in the world, as it was back then. Before they had a place to call their own, they were kind of nomadic. They were wandering in the desert and lost for about 40 years. And God set up this hierarchy, this system among the people so that they could worship him and they could be made right with him. So they could make sacrifices and they could atone for their sins. There's this whole process that they had to go through, some of it monthly, some of it annually, some of it semi-annually. It was this huge process that they would have to go through to be in a right standing with God. And there were people, this line of these families that were involved in that process. And some of them were priests, and they would actually pray for the people, on behalf of the people to God. Others were involved in like we'll call it landscape of the temple. Like they made sure that the place was ready for the people when they came to worship. They made sure that the artifacts that were very important to their interaction with God were kept clean. And they were still in that same line. So back in Numbers, we see this interaction that happens with this guy named Korah. Korah, I'm saying that right, Korah. Now Korah's family was in the line of the Levites, so his big picture. His family was helping the temple. His family was kind of underneath the priesthood. Well, Korah decided that he was not happy being who he was. You ever feel like that? Like, I want to be like that guy. I want to be like her. Her hair is so pretty. I just want to be her. He's got big muscles, and so I want to be like him. Whatever it is for you, those are the two things that I'm concerned about. I want big muscles and better hair. But Korah felt this disconnect. He felt this angst almost of, I'm not happy with where I am. So he was influenced by a couple of other boneheads, and they challenged Aaron. Aaron, top dog, head of the whole situation. They said, Aaron, you shouldn't be priest. We're going to be priest. You're done. God's done with you. It's our turn. I'm tired of cleaning stuff at the church. I want to be in your spot. And so he challenged, this Korah guy, he riles people up. He gets his friends are egging him on. You ever had friends egg you on? I don't understand why the egg is in there, but they do that. They're like, you go. I'll go if you go. And then you end up getting in trouble and they're just, picture that's what Korah's going through. And he takes it a step further. He doesn't just get his friends. He goes around and starts telling everybody that the system is broken, that these guys don't know what's going on. And he gets 250 other people, outside of just his close friends, 250 other people. And they go and they challenge Moses and they challenge Aaron. Now, Moses has been through the ringer. If you read his story through Exodus, the guy had some major challenges. He had some major problems, some major character flaws. But at this point, he's gotten closer to God than he has been in his life. He's been struggling through some things, especially with his relationship with God and leading these people who just keep making dumb decision after dumb decision. And these guys come up and say, you're out, we're in, we'll go ahead and set things up with God and we're going to run the show. You probably didn't know this was in the Bible. Read Numbers, it's crazy. So Moses sits back and goes, okay, here's the deal. You get your guys and you come and we're going to do an offering and you'll burn incense and the whole deal. And here's the situation. I'm going to go talk to God and if you're right, then you guys are going to die by natural causes a long, long time from now, no problems. But if you're wrong and if you're out of line here, then the earth is going to swallow you up. It's a bold move, right? Don't ever call someone out like that. All right, you're saying I'm wrong? Well, if I'm right, you're going to get swallowed by the earth. Like, that's very strange. Now, the whole time that this is going on, we see in Numbers 16 that God is like whispering to Moses on the side, if you parked your car near Korah, you're going to want to move to Lot D. If you've got anything that you like and it's anywhere near Korah and these idiots, you're going to want to pick that up and move it to a safe zone. You can see when Moses starts to, okay, seriously, get away from these guys. This is bad. It's just going to be bad. So we'll pick it up in Numbers chapter 16, verse 31. Moses says all this stuff to the guys. He makes this proclamation. If they're wrong, then they're going to get sucked into the earth. And if they're right, then they're going to live long, happy lives. Verse 31 says, as soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. It gets better. Better. Not only did they get swallowed up by the earth, fire came out. In verse 35, fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. I mean, you don't want to say, I told you so. But Moses did tell them. This is a bizarre, could you imagine seeing this? If you're out in the outskirts, you help move the car to Lot D, and you're going, what's going on over there? I can't say, oh no. Where'd everybody go? Oh, there's fire. What's happening? Like if you were to be there and see that happen, two things strike me about that. If you see that happen, if you're standing there and you watch it unfold in front of you, how big does God seem to you in that moment? How big does God seem to you in that moment? And the second thing that hits me is how tiny do you feel in that moment? How minuscule and smaller than a bug do you feel when you see something like that happen? Korah, gone, swallowed into the earth, realm of the dead, straight down. I thought that goes to China, but apparently it goes to the realm of the dead. I don't know geology that well. The 250 guys that listened to him, burned by fire, gone. Now, if you fast forward quite a bit from Numbers 16, you can, if you skim through it, you're going to see something crazy happen in Numbers 26. Now remember, God's character reveals our response to him and how we should respond to him. Remember that. In Numbers 26, verse 11, we see something very strange. So all this happens with Korah and the idiots that followed him. In chapter 26, verse 11, it's given this big genealogy. And it gets to this line in verse 11. The line of Korah, however, did not die out. So all this happens, and then in the genealogy, we're reading Korah, idiot, challenged at Moses, God swallowed him up and burnt a bunch of people. But then the line of Korah, however, did not die out. What that means is some of Korah's sons, some of Korah's children were not near him. They did not die that way. They lived and they made kids and they made kids and they made kids. And you go 7 generations from Korah. We get this guy in the Bible, his name is Samuel, of the line of Korah. A little bit after that, you get several guys who are of the line of Korah who continue in this Levite tradition, continue working with the temple. And when David is king over Israel, there are guys of the line of Korah. One guy, his name is Heman. I'm not kidding. You can't make this up. His name was Heman. He's got the hair and the muscles. You're welcome. Heman of Korah. And these guys, several of these guys became worship leaders under King David. And King David wrote a bunch of the book of Psalms. Check this out. The sons of Korah, people who are from his family, wrote 25 Psalms. That's 16% of the book of Psalms was written by sons of Korah. Let's read that again one more time. Chapter 46. God is a refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though the waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging, there's a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow. He shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Now, if you are a son of Korah and you go to school and you read history books and everyone knows that someone in your family challenged God and God destroyed them by the mountains and the sea and sending fire to swallow people up. That's your story. That's your personal story. These guys wrote Psalm 46. They didn't write it to be descriptive language. They didn't think, what are the coolest words? They didn't go to an old thesaurus and go, all right, what sounds cool? What rhymes good? They went straight to their heart. They went straight to their history. They said, what matters to us? And they wrote Psalm 46, and the language that's in this chapter sounds so similar to what happened to their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Now, if I'm writing this song for them, I get to this point, I get to verse 9, and I've described all these things about God. I feel like I would probably do something like, God's big, he's powerful, he burns people up, the mountains and the sea, he's in control of everything, and I am so mad at him. I disagree with his choices. I am not happy about the way that he is God. If you read verse 10, they take a different approach. Psalm 46:10 says, God says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Sons of Korah wrote out of personal situations. They describe God so accurately throughout chapter 46. And they get to this critical point in verse 10 where they say, we've identified God's character. God is in control. He is all-powerful. He is sovereign. He is God. And he can do what he wants. And you see it littering this chapter that he wants to protect us. Their response in verse 10, after defining God's character, their response is they say, we want to be still. And we want to know that he is God. This is not the way Korah, if he was writing this, it would have ended very differently. If I would write this, it would probably be very different sometimes. But these guys wrote this song of praise where the crucial line in this thing, and you've probably heard this verse sometime before, be still and know that I am God. These guys wrote out of personal and family anguish and pain and regret. And where they end up is a place where they are begging for more intimacy with God. They're begging for more rest with God. Be still. Korah was not still. Korah could not keep still. Korah couldn't, I imagine this guy just like, just full of, got to get out, got to do something, got to make something happen, got to change it, got to fix it. These guys recognize who God is means be still and know that he is God. I love that. I love that. So the big question coming out of this, we understand God's character. God is in control. Man, it's hard to read this stuff, and if you give it the truth that it demands, and you read it and let it jump off the pages and just get in your heart, this stuff really happened. God is exactly who he says he is. And if God is exactly who he says he is, my response to that, he does his thing. And I want to be as close to him as possible. I want an intimate relationship with him. I want to rely on him. I want to trust him. And I want to do exactly what he's asked me to do, which is to give him glory for everything that he does. And give him glory for everything he does to me and through me and for me. So we're going to sing that song we did just a minute ago. We're going to sing it again right now. So Allison and PJ, you guys come on up here. And you stay seated. I just want you to stay right where you are. For your glory and for me. Where's the lyrics? I want to read this. Close your eyes as I just want to read this to you real quick. The earth was void and formless, darkness covering the deep. You brooded over the waters for your glory and for me. At the very beginning of time, God was there, and he began creating for the end purpose of us and for the end purpose of his glory. He left his throne in heaven, seated high in majesty, to become a humble servant for his glory and for me. He creates everything, and then he puts himself right in the middle of it. He does that for his glory, and he does that to reach us. As he did that, becoming sin for sinners, a curse upon a tree, you cried out, "It is finished," for your glory and for me. Not only did God create the earth, not only did he come to the earth, but he allowed himself to be killed publicly, shamefully, and without guilt for his glory and for you. The fourth verse says, the tomb was only borrowed. The light of men walked free, overcoming every darkness for your glory and for me. He didn't just die. He died and then he defeated death. He came back to life. He proved, just as we see him in the Old Testament, that he is more powerful than anything. And he did that for his glory, and he did that for you. Our response is the chorus, I lift my voice in joyful song for who you are and what you've done. I lift my hands to bless your name, Jesus Christ, my God and King. Our response to God being who he is, our response to getting a little bit closer to understanding his character, our response to digging into these old psalms, these songs of praise, our response is to worship him. And we can worship him in every facet of our life, of every relationship, every decision, every attitude that we have the opportunity to worship him. And tonight, in this moment, we have a chance to worship him by simply singing this truth about him back to him. So I want you to stay seated. Keep your eyes closed. Allison's going to sing the song. And I want you to think about this reality. That this happened. Everything in the song happened, and it happened for God's glory, and it happened for us.